It might be useful to talk about different approaches to game design, different kinds of game designers. And one view of this is game designers as artisans, engineers, and mimics. The artisan, or also called inventor, is a pretty rare type. He or she rates creativity, innovation above mere entertainment. Sometimes they think of themselves as artists. They have great self-belief to the point of being arrogant at times. And they make games for themselves, not for others. You might call this the heroic view of game design. They often fall flat. In fact, nowadays, we're past the time when video games especially were ways for designers to express themselves. We're now in a time where entertainment has come to the fore, and yet when one of these artisans is successful, they can make very striking games. Then we have the engineer, also called the refiner. This is a pretty common type of game designer. They're not worried about art. They're concerned about entertainment. They're entertainers. And some of the most famous game designers, like Miyamoto and Knizia, say just that they're entertainers. So they're strong in testing and modification of a game to improve it, to make the game as entertaining as possible. And they usually make games for other people, not for themselves. Then we have the mimic, or the copier. This type is quite common in video games, especially small video games. It's a lot less common in tabletop games. What the mimic tries to do is reproduce or clone successful games. A successful game comes out, and within a few months the mimics have created games that work just the same way, but they hope that they'll be able to take advantage of the success of the first game. So they're not involved in creativity or problem solving particularly, they're just involved in reproduction of something. Farmville, for example, is said to be a direct copy of an earlier game. Most people haven't heard of the earlier game. I can't even remember what the title is, whereas Farmville became very, very successful. Don't be this kind of game developer. Nobody likes them, even though what they're doing is legal. This leads to another question, which I'll get out of the way here. Are games art? And are they art with a capital A or art with a lowercase a? Here's my view. All games are art, but the players, with few exceptions, don't care. Few games are high art with a capital A. Games are entertainment, and most entertainment isn't art with a capital A. It's art with lowercase a. Even great composers like Mozart and Beethoven wrote music to make money. They wrote music to entertain. As it turned out, many of their works are high art and are worshipped today for that reason. But many of their works were not. Nonetheless, they were art. They were entertaining at the time. Now, if you think you're an artiste gifting the world with your brilliance, you'll probably be a poor excuse for a game designer. But you never know. Now here's another way of looking at things that I ran across fairly recently. This comes from fiction writing, specifically George R.R. Martin. He says writers are gardeners or architects. Architects like to plan everything. They make detailed outlines. They know ahead of time what's going to happen. Gardeners just start writing and see what happens. And Martin is that type of writer, and so was the author of The Wheel of Time. And you can see it sometimes in their writing where they seem to lose their way and things happen, but it doesn't move the saga as a whole ahead. Well, the same kind of comparison can be made in game design, more or less. You can have people who plan a lot and people who just throw some things together and then try it out and see what happens. Artisans may be of the gardener type, perhaps more likely than engineers are. The mimics are of the architect type in the sense that they're following a plan. Unfortunately, it's somebody else's plan that they're copying. Where do you fall in these ranges? That's the question. And where do you want to fall?